All right, baseball fans, welcome back to the channel. We've got a huge one for you today. I am doing something that's been by request really since 2017, and I'll explain myself here in just a second. We're going to rank every single Major League Baseball park from worst to best, all 30 of them, so sit back and stay tuned. This is going to be kind of a long one. In 2017, I went to every single ballpark in a single summer. Since then, I've been back to several of these many times. And since that summer, everyone's been asking me, what's your favorite ballpark? Give me a Mount Rushmore of your ballparks. Give me what's the worst. Well, today we are finally going to answer that question. I am so thrilled to share this with you. I do have to share a few disclaimers before we get going. So number one, this is all my opinion. This is just one man's opinion. I am not out to make friends today. In fact, I know I'm probably going to make some enemies with this video, but because I did go to all the ballparks, maybe that gives me a little bit of leeway and leverage to kind of make my point a little bit. Number two, there's not a single one unit of measurement that I'm using to do these ballparks. It would be a totally different ranking altogether if I was going by best food, best fans or atmosphere, best parking lot, tailgate, who cares? Like, there's so many ways that I can mix this list. So really what we're just going off of is overall vibes, just my experience with each ballpark. And hopefully by the time we're getting to our top 10, top 5, you can look forward to seeing your ballpark get a huge shout out on this video. One last thing I gotta say, shout out to the boys in Phoenix. I just went to my first NLCS game I've ever been to, and I'm probably gonna turn right back around and go see the Arizona Diamondbacks play in Phoenix for a World Series game. And with that said, that's enough of an intro. Let's go ahead and get right into this. Starting at number 30, it's kind of a race to the bottom with some of these ballparks here, and I think I got to give it to the Coliseum. Now, this pains me greatly because the city of Oakland, specifically the Oakland A's fans, deserve so much better than this god-awful ballpark. I can't believe this is still being used, especially with the seats over there that just aren't being used. They call that Mount Davis. Completely blocks any views that you might have from home plate, and it just ultimately sucks for their fans because the A's seriously have some of the best fans in baseball. So the stadium atmosphere is top notch. I love going to games here, and it just kills me inside every time because I know that the city deserves better. I know those fans deserve better. I know the players deserve better than this ballpark. It's clearly the worst in baseball, but the fan experience is second to none. I mean, those fans are nuts, and the BART goes directly up to the Coliseum, and you can get to the stadium really easily. But as a ballpark, this had to be at number 30. It's just bad. And not much better across the country at number 29. You're talking about a race to the bottom. It's always going to be between the Coliseum and Tropicana Field there in St. Pete. And I know that they are going to be getting a new ballpark. The renderings are out there, and it's going to break ground here before much longer. But if we look at Tropicana Field for what it is, I really hate baseball indoors as a permanent option. If this roof could open, maybe we could talk a little bit, because the inside isn't that bad, but it's that permanent closure. Of course, they have the special rules with the catwalks. I will say the first and only time that I've been to this ballpark, I really did enjoy myself. I was there with some good friends of mine, and they do have the Devil Ray touch tank out there in the outfield, which was really cool. And they have a really nice baseball museum there in the ballpark as well. So it's a pretty good atmosphere. But again, if we want to talk about fans that deserve better, I'd be harder pressed to find a better example than the Tampa Bay Rays fans. I mean, this ballpark is it's something else. And now that we got the obvious worst and more worst ballparks out of the way, it's kind of getting more into like a true ranking. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this going. At number 28, we're going to the south side of Chicago with Comiskey Park. I don't even remember. It's not worth remembering the current sponsorship of this. This ballpark has to be one of the most boring, forgotten, who cares ballparks. And that sucks too, because I love the Chicago White Sox. I actually can say something nice about all the teams on this list. I just love baseball. This ballpark offers one of the best views of downtown Chicago that you can get. There's nothing in the outfield except for the interstate and some pinwheels. I mean, the pinwheels are kind of like the icon of this ballpark. There's really nothing great about this ballpark in any way. It just feels very sterile and bland. First of many controversial opinions here, Toronto Blue Jays. Now, when this stadium first opened, it was absolutely state of the art with that retractable roof. But we go back and look with 2020 vision and hindsight here and see that it was kind of behind the time a little bit. Because again, this is just a very sterile ballpark overall. I know that they did just do some renovations not that long ago, and the hotel out there in center field is pretty unique. It's kind of an iconic look, but beyond that, just so much concrete, just a lot of sterileness to it. And the one and only time that I went, I just had a fine time. The roof was open, and that was pretty cool, and I got to see Chris Sale get his 300th strikeout, and it's pretty incredible seeing the CN Tower right there. It's so dominant, and it kind of gives you a vertigo feeling when you're sitting down and looking up at it. It's great that it's in downtown Toronto. There's a lot of things to do immediately before and after the game, a lot of great bars and stuff around there. But this ballpark is just so cement and concrete heavy. It just feels so sterile on the inside, especially with that roof closed. At number 26, possibly for a lot of the same reasons here, we've got Marlins Park, just since been bought out as far as naming rights. It's now Lone Depot Park, so there we go. It's just insane to me the amount of money they spent on this ballpark for what they got out of it. Like when I went in 2017, it still felt brand new, and I just remember there were like hardly any fans there. I went for 2 nights. You know, the Marlins, they weren't great, but they weren't awful either. You know, they had like a young lineup full of like big stars. I know they still had Giancarlo Stanton, D. Gordon, Ichiro was there. A lot of exciting guys to root for. But I remember I wanted to go up to the upper level to take some pictures behind home plate, and they had closed off like some escalators in certain sections to get up there. Like I got yelled at for trying to walk up an escalator that wasn't running, saying that those upper sections were closed. And I was like, man, you're kidding me. Where are all the fans at? Where are all the people at? It just felt like such a downer just to be in that ballpark. The environment wasn't there. The concourses, the amenities, you know, nothing was really that exciting. And again, this was in 2017, so it's probably different now, especially like this team did just make the playoffs for the first time since that 2003 World Series. So I guarantee this is going to be a better environment. I did have the best Cuban sandwich of my life in Marlins Ballpark, which feels a little sacrilege because I know you can get way better Cubans like literally anywhere else in Miami, but I had a really good one the 2 times that I was there in 2017. So tip of the old cap to that. At number 25, we've got Angel Stadium in Anaheim. It's really not bad. Everything going forward, I have nothing but really nice things to say about this ballpark. What loses me about Angel Stadium, obviously this is LA we're talking about, so I'm going to say the same things when we get to Dodger Stadium. It's just in the middle of a freeway parking lot craziness. There's really nothing around it. There's nothing to do. It's just surrounded by parking. And overall, I just didn't feel like there was a whole lot going on for it. You know, you do have that water fountain feature out there in center field. And of course, there's like the big hats out there behind the home plate. And those are kind of interesting. But overall, just really not a lot to be stoked about with Angel Stadium. It just feels very forgettable. This is where players just go to die and rot. And that's kind of what the stadium feels like to a degree. It just feels like a pit where the best talents in baseball just go to waste. At number 24, we've got Nationals Ballpark in DC. There's a whole lot to do in the area that this is built on in Navy Yards there in DC. There's a lot of good bars, and they've really been kind of building and developing that whole area. It's kind of becoming more of what we'll talk about before much longer with the Atlanta Braves and their Battery area out there by the ballpark. That's kind of what the Nationals have done here with like they have a whole little kind of village out there in center field, and it's a really nice area to enjoy yourself like before and after the game, meet your friends, really easily accessible from the metro. So I did appreciate all those things from Nationals Ballpark. Beyond that, this was by far one of the most expensive ballparks that I visited in 2017, and this ballpark also just felt very corporate, and also there's not really any views of anything worth, like you're right there in the heart of DC, and you got to squint your eyes and look through the various condos that are being built all around the ballpark to get a view of the Washington Monument, or if you look in the right place you can see some of the iconic landmarks of DC. It didn't feel like a casual fan's ballpark. It was pretty, it was nice, I enjoyed myself, but yeah, far from my favorite. And the same can be said, honestly, about number 23 with Yankees Ballpark. Again, just a very corporate, very sterile feeling ballpark. It really has not a whole lot of life to it unless you're a diehard Yankee fan. You don't casually like the Yankees. You kind of like bleed and die for the Yankees when you're a Yankee fan. They do have a ton of history scattered throughout this ballpark, and I do appreciate that. I truly do. And it is easily accessible by the subway. And to be honest with you, those kinds of things do rank a little higher for me when there's things to do before and after right outside the ballpark, and the stadium itself is easily accessible. I do appreciate those things more, so just know that I am factoring that in a little bit here. Good memories that I've had here, far from my favorite. At number 22, we've got Minute Maid Park, home of the Houston Astros. By far my least favorite team in baseball. So to put them up here maybe validates the fact that I'm trying to be as objective about this as possible, because if I'm going by teams that I like or dislike, Yankees and Astros would have been like towards the bottom. For a city that is so car dependent and suburbanized, to put their ballpark in downtown right next to one of the entrances is actually the old train station there, is pretty cool, and they've kept that train vibe. I do appreciate the choo-choo going with every home run. I do think that's a really unique feature, and I really like the boxes they have out there in the outfield, kind of with the arches. Just looks really nice. This is a very cool ballpark. I really appreciate a lot of things going on in here. We're starting to get into some good stuff here. At number 21, let's just go ahead and get the other Texas team out of the way. It is the new Texas Rangers ballpark, built right next to the old Globe Life Field. It's completely indoors. That was the big problem of why they needed to switch from their old ballpark, which I had a good time there too. I did not have bad experiences here at all. There's really good sight lines all around the ballpark, really good beer options as well. I actually saw Aaron Judge hit a 60-second home run in this ballpark last year, so that was my first chance to check it out. Yankees and Rangers collectively were just super cool during that whole series. A lot of nice things I can say about this ballpark. It's just not my favorite. At number 20, we just kind of alluded to it a minute ago, we've got Truist Field or Truist Park in Atlanta. And I don't even know if you can say this is in Atlanta. It's not even in the same county that Atlanta is in. This is pretty far from downtown Atlanta, which is where their old ballpark used to be at Turner Field. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. I am like an urbanist at heart. I just alluded to it a moment ago. The fact that this ballpark is so far away from downtown with like not a lot of solid transit options to get there, it really kills the vibe for this ballpark for me. I remember when I landed in Atlanta back in 2017, I needed to get out to this ballpark and it cost me an arm and a leg to do it. The whole thing just felt very frustrating. The Battery itself was probably my best experience of the ballpark, that little village that they have right outside the ballpark. It just felt like a really cool little area before and after the game. I enjoyed my time there more so than my time in the ballpark. This ballpark is just does not feel connected to the city of Atlanta, but as it is, number 20, and we're cracking into the teens. That's going to give us Progressive Field in Cleveland, home of the Guardians, at number 19. I do think it's punching above its weight as far as like the view that you're getting of the city and the fact that it's right next to where the Cavaliers play. There's kind of like a little like sports area right there within downtown Cleveland. It makes for a very cool spot to like meet up with friends. There's a lot of cool restaurants and bars in that area. Cleveland itself gets a huge like negative rap for no reason. I think that people that talk smack about Cleveland have never actually been there and experienced it. And I think that the stadium is great in so many ways, just not super memorable. There's not like a single piece of, like iconography or like a landmark that you can like immediately think of when you think of Progressive Field in Cleveland. I remember in 2017, they had those, they were almost like semi-trailer box seats. Kind of what I remember at the time was just seeing those boxes and I'm like, what is this ballpark? It just feels like slightly strange. Not good, not bad, not the best, not the worst. Progressive Field, number 19. At number 18, we've got Miller Park in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This ballpark never disappoints. Some amazing beer, the best sausages I've ever had. It's kind of shaped like a slice of pizza, the way that that roof opens and closes. And of course, you've got every home run, Bernie Brewer sliding down the slide. And this is just a very fun atmosphere. The tailgate vibe is incredible. It feels a little disconnected from the rest of like downtown Milwaukee. If you're not wanting to tailgate before or after to get to or from this ballpark, can be a bit of a pain. And it is showing a little bit of signs of age. It's kind of showing a little bit of wear and tear, so much to the point where like Major League Baseball is stepping in and forcing some renovations on this ballpark. I still really love this ballpark. And I know it's not called Miller Park anymore. I don't really care what it's called. I'm not like going by the new corporate naming right. This is forever Miller Park to me. Great stadium. At number 17, perhaps a little higher on my list just because of where the vibes are at with obviously where I feel about this team. I gotta go with Chase Field, home of the Arizona Diamondbacks, right there in downtown Phoenix. I've been to this ballpark so many times over the last few years. I love the stadium. I always have. Never a bad time. Obviously, I like it so much more when the roof is open, but with it being Arizona, the roof is closed 90% of the time, but I appreciate the fact that it's retractable. Obviously, the weather is really harsh, and so it is closed half the time, but when they do open it, it's fantastic, and I love that it has that option. When it's closed, it's a nice environment too. You've got the pool there, you've got Bobby Freeman slaying it on the Oregon up in left field. It's just an awesome, awesome experience. I love Chase Field so much. Very near and dear to my heart. And go D-backs. I bet you thought this was just a prop for the video, but no, I'm actually still sipping coffee here. This is a monster video. We got to get through it. Glad you're with me so far. Give a like if you're enjoying this content. At number 16, we've got the Cincinnati Reds. Another great ballpark that just punches so far above its weight. This is right there along the riverfront in downtown Cincinnati. I remember the first time I went to this ballpark, I actually parked in Kentucky and walked over the bridge to get to Ohio and watch the Cincinnati Reds play. It was a very cool experience, and there's a lot of great things to do immediately outside before and after the game. It's also very sick with like the river boat out there that acts as like a kind of prop for like fireworks and displays, and there's like seats over there too. It's just like a awesome way to tie this to the city of Cincinnati and its history. It doesn't face downtown. It chooses to face the river, and and I respect that, but it's always nicer to have that downtown view, and that's why some of the top teams that we're going to see all have like a view that adds to the ballpark experience so much. For me, is having that downtown view. And so if you're sitting behind home plate, you really don't get much of a view of anything. You don't even really see the river if you're directly behind home plate. Some seats are better than others depending on what you want to see and what your experience is going to be. So I do like this ballpark a lot, and it is definitely punching above its weight, but I like some of these other ballparks just a little bit more. And that's going to put us at 15. We are right smack in the middle. We're going to go ahead and give it to the Kansas City Royals at number 15. Great ballpark. Awful location. I'm so sorry, Kansas City fans. I just can't get behind this huge swath of parking between your two stadiums, you know, with Kauffman Field, excellent stadium, and Arrowhead, home of the Chiefs. They're both incredible atmospheres for their respective sport. But what you're seeing, you know, you want to talk about a view. If you're sitting behind home plate here at the Kansas City Royals, you're just looking at an interstate with like hotels, and there's like a Denny's over there. It's not doing the city of Kansas City any justice, because this ballpark really is a gem. Like, you know, it was built in the 70s. It stood the test of time. It's aged really well. The fountains, incredible barbecue, really good beer options too. Like, it's just a very cool ballpark. There's talks now of building them a new downtown stadium, and all these people that are like, you know, oh, you build it downtown, where are we going to park? It's like as if like downtown Kansas City isn't just like a giant parking lot as it is. I really don't want to go on a tangent here, and I totally am. You know, this is not an urbanist video. This just loses me so much because it is a giant pain in the ass to get to. If you just like focus your attention to the inside of the ballpark, awesome stadium. I can't wait for that downtown stadium to get built. Sorry, not sorry. I know I'm probably creating a lot of enemies. Just know, Royals, I respect you, and you do have a great ballpark. Just pick it up and move it downtown. It'd be awesome. At number 14, we're going to go with Shea Stadium, home of the Mets, or Citi Field, rather. Home of the Mets. Awesome atmosphere, electric. Those Mets fans go nuts, and they're also very friendly and welcoming. Not a lot of a view to talk about, you know, since we're kind of on that point right now, but you can get some great views of Manhattan if, you know, you're along the concourses and looking in the right place. And if you're a big plane guy like I am, this is probably one of the best ballparks for plane spotting. It's right next to LaGuardia Airport, so it's really easy to get to from many places in New York City, and I love it. This is not a lot of negativity that I can say about this stadium, but there are definitely some better ones coming up ahead. At number 13, we've got the Bank. I'm not about to dog on the Phillies. This is to highlight their ballpark because they do have a really good one. There's awesome sightlines all around the ballpark. You know, that big Liberty Bell is just very daunting when it rings for home runs. And when the Phillies win, it's just a very intimidating bell. You can see a good view of downtown Philadelphia from most places in the ballpark, though it does feel a little out of the way because this is in the sports complex of Philadelphia. There's really good food and drink options inside as well. Probably very unpopular opinion, I had the best cheesesteak that I ever had in Philadelphia. I've been to several games here, and the best steak that I had came from some random shop inside the ballpark. So I know everyone's got a better steak joint that they could recommend, but awesome food, great atmosphere, electric inside this ballpark, no doubt. At number 12, we've got Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. There's so many great things to say about this ballpark. The view that you get of Chavez Ravine is really unmatched. If you're at home plate, that side of the ballpark, if you turn around, you know, you're going to get an excellent view of LA. And the whole thing feels both modern and retro. If we're looking at some of those scoreboards there in the outfield, they have this really unique shape that just reminds me of like the 60s when this ballpark was like freshly new. Obviously, the biggest ballpark in baseball, and the fact that it's in Los Angeles is going to create an issue with parking, in the sense that this is a very isolated ballpark. It is just in the middle of a sea of parking. It's literally a hike to get to this ballpark if you're going to do it on foot. That might be a fun video for the future of this channel, is walking to Dodger Stadium, because this is a great ballpark once you're there, but it's the getting in and out, to and from, is a huge pain in the ass, which is a shame because it's beautiful. At number 11, the Minnesota Twins, perhaps one of the best ballparks for accessibility. I mean, there's bike lanes that like will take you right to this ballpark. It's very cool. It's a beautiful ballpark, punches above its weight. You know, the limestone that it's got out there and the plants and everything. It's a beautiful look to it. It's very clean and crisp and sleek. It has very nicely woven itself into the fabric of downtown Minneapolis. This is just a great ballpark overall. I remember the atmosphere was pretty good. There are some ballparks coming up, or even ballparks that we've talked about already, that just have a general more electric feel to them. Minnesota felt very laid back. You know, everyone's very chill. I think that's just the whole Midwestern vibe in general. Everyone's kind of polite, even with like their chirps. So it's just a very fun ballpark. It's very nice overall. It is like unmatched as far as like the experience that you get for the price that you're paying. Great views, great food, great people. Like, this was just a really excellent ballpark overall, which I think is a good segue to number 10. We've got Wrigley Field, home of the Chicago Cubs. And I know that I'm rustling a few feathers here by putting this ballpark at number 10. This really does have it all in terms of history and notoriety. Like, this has so much prestige. This truly does feel like a great American cathedral when we're talking about baseball. And this is a destination ballpark that any baseball fan wants to get to. I have to respect that, and I truly do. But really what loses me, and we will talk about this, rest assured, when we're talking about Fenway, is that there are signs of its age. You're still, for the men, peeing in a trough with ice, and I'm sorry, but like, that's gross and dirty, especially for the cost that you're paying to get into this stadium. I went to Wrigley Field the year before that 2016 World Series, and I went there with my aunt, and we had great views for a decent price. But then I went the year After the World Series, my God, it was night and day. We paid like double the price. The year after the World Series, man, like this ballpark had such a corporate, sterile vibe to it. I hope it's gone. I haven't been back since then, but everyone was wearing like the brand new gold lettering 2016 World Series jerseys. It just wasn't fun for a little bit to go to Wrigley Field. I was like, man, this just feels too sterile. I do hope that it one day returns to that like friendly confines vibe. They're being priced out, and I'm sure that it will, but you know, I really couldn't get past, like, I'm like, man, I'm paying so much. There's a lot of obstructed views in this ballpark, and I feel like the tickets have just kind of like skyrocketed since that World Series. So respect this ballpark, love it for its historical aspect, but it loses me a little bit with that corporateness, and I just can't get over it. At number 9, this is Comerica Park in Detroit, Michigan. My God, the Tigers have a phenomenal stadium with an incredible view of downtown Detroit, which is such an amazing city. I love Detroit, with a lot of great food, a lot of great places to hang out before and after games. I love the Tigers that are just all over the place, that are just like built into the fabric of this ballpark. There's a lot of great stuff for the kids too. Like I remember the Ferris wheel. There's kind of like a little carnival area. Great environment, great atmosphere. Comerica Park, unsung gem of a ballpark. This is just a beautiful ballpark all in all. At number 8, one of my all-time favorite ballparks. This is Safeco Field in Seattle, Washington. Incredible ballpark here. Obviously, it rains a lot in Seattle. It can get really cold. This has a retractable roof that comes over it, but it does not close off the ballpark at all. It acts like this big umbrella. So even when the roof is closed, it really does feel like you're still outside. And that's just like a very cool effect. Excellent transit options. It's just south of downtown. Depending on where you're sitting in the ballpark, you can see like the iconic downtown Seattle skyline. It's very cool. You've got that center field area that's just like this big plaza to hang out, drink beer, chill with your friends. Very cool area to be at. Excellent food options in this ballpark as well. And then you've kind of got like that boulevard, that industrial strip that's kind of like right in between this and Lumen Field, where the Seahawks and the Sounders play, that you can just get all kinds of like tailgaming, pre-gaming in. There's excellent food options. I always get a Seattle dog, sometimes both before and after a game when I enter the ballpark from this way. Yeah, Safeco Field. Very, very high on my list, near and dear to my heart. At number 7, we've got Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Incredible ballpark if you're going to talk about fan atmosphere. My experience at this ballpark has always been very pleasant. It has an insane view of downtown St. Louis, which has an iconic skyline, especially with the arch right there. Awesome food and drink options, both inside and outside the stadium. You know, they just built that ballpark village right across the street. A lot of cool stuff to do there in Ballpark Village. St. Louis would not be St. Louis, Missouri without the Cardinals. Like, it's such an integral part of the identity of the city. This is an incredible ballpark. I love it. St. Louis, very, very cool ballpark. At number 6, again, this might ruffle some feathers. Fenway Park, Boston, Massachusetts. Everything that I just said about Wrigley as far as like weird seats that have an obstructed view, yeah, that can definitely be said about Fenway as well. But where I'm gonna give it the nod is just, I appreciate the atmosphere a lot better here, and I feel like the prices have always kind of reflected right where they need to be, in the sense that whether they're winning, whether they're losing, you're always going to find like a decently priced ticket, and it's always going to be an electric atmosphere, no matter if they're successful that year, if they're having a down year. Boston is not Boston without Fenway. It's such an integral part of the city. You got to get cozy with people next to you. This was built a long, long time ago, but it is aging beautifully in the sense that you go there and you are just feel that you're a part of history. Every baseball fan needs to get to this ballpark in their lifetime. Iconic. Okay, guys, if you're with me so far, please drop a like, drop a subscribe. I really hope you're enjoying this. This has been a blast to put together. Let's go ahead and crack into our top 5, starting with Coors Field, home of the Colorado Rockies. This is a beautiful ballpark with gorgeous views. If you turn right around, you can see downtown Denver. Great view of downtown, beautiful skyline. This ballpark itself has so many little interesting little features. I mean, the bullpens look like a wilderness forest with like the aspens. Over there in right field, they have like pregame bars and lounges. There's DJs that play up there. It's just a really cool place to hang out. And you've got the purple row of seats that represent exactly a mile in elevation. So if you're sitting at or above that, you know that you're sitting at this mile high field. Their fans are excellent. Love Rocky fans. They're just cool people, and they really love their team. I mean, this is just a great atmosphere overall. What you're getting for the value you're paying is unmatched. This is a beautiful ballpark. What a gem in Denver, man. This is great. At number 4, this is the first ballpark that I've ever been to in my life. I hold it near and dear to my heart. This is Camden Yards in Baltimore, Maryland. One of the most iconic ballparks that when it was built in the 90s really set the trend for ballparks going forward, as far as having this kind of like retro look to it that integrates itself into the city. I mean, we can see the B&O warehouse right there in right field, and the fact that that's integrated as part of the design there for Camden Yards, it's beautiful. This is an iconic stadium that set the trend for ballparks going forward after it got built in the 90s. This is what every ballpark being built now aspires to be, as far as like building itself like in a downtown area that's integrated into part of the fabric of the city. And Baltimore did it first. They did it better than anyone else. This is so deserving of a top 5 spot. I hold Camden Yards near and dear to my heart. Meet me at Pickles Pub pregame next year, and let's go catch a nose game. Yeah, love this ballpark. At number 3, let's take it to San Francisco, home of the Giants. What can be said about this ballpark that hasn't already been said? I mean, it's right there on the San Francisco Bay. Just incredible views. You can go there in August. Be sure and bring a blanket and a sweatshirt because you are going to get cold with that breeze coming in. I learned that the hard way. Just a gorgeous stadium. I will admit that it does feel a little corporate at times, like a lot corporate at times, but it doesn't have that sterileness to it. It just feels very approachable from like anyone can go see a game here and have an absolute blast. Incredible transit options, incredible food options. San Francisco, man, absolute gem. Love this ballpark. Never get tired of that view. At number 2, let's keep it in California. Let's go down south to San Diego to Petco Park. Again, one of my all-time favorite parks, been to it many times, and it is beautiful. Like, how do you frown in the San Diego sun, taking in a game, integrated right into the city fabric? You can leave this ballpark, go right to the Gaslamp District, and just have an absolute blast. This is a gorgeous ballpark. Again, we just mentioned with Baltimore, with the integration of part of the city fabric. Like, look at the warehouse there in left field, and it's just like integrated so perfectly, so beautifully. Gorgeous ballpark. Guys, if you've been following along at home, you realize maybe you could have seen this coming. Who could have? At number 1, it's got to be PNC Park in Pittsburgh, home of the Pirates. The best ballpark in baseball, hands down. Now, I lived in Pittsburgh for about 4 years, and I'm not kidding when I say this. This ballpark was a big reason why I decided to move there in the first place, all the way from Montana. There's nothing I can say about PNC Park that would not do it better justice if we were just to go to a game and hang out and experience it together. It's a small ballpark by Major League Baseball standards, but it doesn't need that big upper deck to really get the sense of scale and appreciation of this ballpark. The Clemente Bridge that's just right there, which is what most fans will cross when they come to this ballpark. Like, if they're starting from downtown, you're going to cross the Clemente Bridge to go to the game. There's really truly no better way to enter a ballpark than that right there. This is built right on the river too, so you can walk up along the Riverwalk and come in from the ballpark that direction. Nothing you could do to make this ballpark any better. There's really nothing you can do to make this ballpark any better. Outside of making Iron City only like $8 because it's $14 is like anywhere else, any other ballpark. It's a total ripoff. But I mean it when I say this ballpark is near and dear to my heart. Like, I literally have Pirates tattooed on my arm. Man, I can't wait to go back because I haven't been to a game here in a few years. And anyone who wants to go to Pittsburgh, hang out with me for a little while and see this ballpark together, hit me up because it is a gem. Truly, one of the best ballparks in the world and best in baseball. I truly do not believe that there are any bad baseball parks out there. There's just bad features and bad ownership. Oakland. And guys, that's going to do it for this ranking. I hope that finally answered the question for anyone who's ever asked me, like, where do I put these ballparks? Here you go. And by the time this is published, I may be in Phoenix watching a World Series game, and it will not give me time to rethink any of these listings because give it a year or two, and I might have different opinions about them. Let me know who you got between the Rangers and Diamondbacks. I'll tell you my vote right now. I'll give you a hint. It's not the Rangers. Cheers, guys. Go D-backs. We'll see you in the next video.